What's up, YouTube? It's Dr. Joseph. As the great doctor that I am. So what's up, guys? It's been like 6 months since I've made a movie review. I know I'm slacking. Whatever. No excuses. Today we're talking about a movie called The Least of These. This is the story of a missionary named Graham Staines who worked inside of India curing lepers and spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. Before I get into the review, I do want to say, you guys know I'm an absolute clown. I say stupid stuff, I goof off, but no matter whatever I say in this video, I do not mean anything to be irreverent or disrespectful to the life story of Graham Staines. I mean absolute respect and sympathy and condolences for anyone who was affected by what happened in his life. So in the movie, The Least of These, we are introduced to a very talented Indian journalist by the name of, alright, let me get it right, hold on. Manav Banerjee. I said that about as white as I could say it, but hey, at least I remember what his name was. So this is a very good journalist who is so good that he gets an offer to move to the state of Orissa with his pregnant wife and have a chance for a new life. The new newspaper office that he's applying at is so impressed with his work. It's amazing.
I like your work.
But they want to see different types of news because this guy spent most of his career writing about religious type of news and about missionaries. But Manav really gets their interest when he introduces a theory that he thinks missionaries are performing a lot of forced conversions, because in India it's illegal to pay or force someone to convert to Christianity. And if he could expose them, it would make great news. He decides that he wants to expose Graham Staines. On his ride home, he's riding on a bus but runs into a leper. A leper is basically a death sentence inside of the people's minds of that time. So everyone freaks out. He ends up on the side of the road walking home. Guess who comes by to pick him up? Graham Staines, right?
Hello there.
He's met the very person that he wants to expose. So going on from there, he begins to search out different missionaries and try to find people performing forced conversions. He finds somebody doing a baptism, gets into a scuffle with them, and starts chasing them in the most exciting action scene in the whole movie. Oh, come on, get him! You got this! I don't know why I'm telling him to catch the Christians. That's kind of hypocritical of me. But hey, it's not an action movie, so what can I say? This guy is so good that while he's out chasing Christians, his wife is having his baby and he's not even there for her. Good job, Manav. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. Good job. But after his wife's pregnancy and the birth of their new child, unfortunately, she has a few complications and begins to have bleeding. So she's moved to the hospital and basically spends the rest of the movie in the hospital bed while Manav is running around trying to expose people. It makes me think of this other movie that I saw as a kid. It wasn't a very good movie. It was some Christian movie called The Sword. And literally the whole movie is about this guy protecting this castle and his mom's just laying in bed the whole time.
Jonathan.
Manav is having so much success as a journalist because he's just so good. His boss's boss, the boss of his boss, however that works, like his grand boss, like if your father is your grandfather, it's his grand boss. I'm pretty sure that's a dictionary word, I'm sure it is. Tells him he wants Manav to pretend to become a Christian so that he can get all buddy-buddy with Graham Staines and expose him. The problem is Graham Staines has already seen at least 1 or 2 of his articles and is already kind of on the lookout for him.
Hi. You are fake news. Go ahead.
Graham's is kind of worried that if he does anything wrong, that he's going to get into big trouble, and if he does, all of the lepers that he's working with, all the people that he's trying to heal are going to lose him. So he's trying his very best to not perform any illegal conversions or anything like that, which I think is commendable. Yo boy Manav ends up going to Staines' complex to meet him, to say hi to people, and hopefully catch him doing something illegal. He's kind of creepy about it. He literally goes there and just stands around and stares at people. They don't like you because they've already read your article talking about them. You think they're just gonna be like, oh, is that
I actually work for New.
Leave my children out of it.
After going to the complex, he meets a couple people that have connections with Graham Staines. So he ends up going to their village where they're about to be kicked out because they get in trouble with the village. And the village isn't even sure if they've really been cured of leprosy because they don't trust the missionaries' cure because they don't like missionaries. So Manav, trying to get to know these people, defends them, saying, you know, they should trust the missionaries' cure for them. That makes the crowd angry, especially this young rebel rouser named Mahindra. The people think he's just defending Christianity and the missionaries, and this gets them so angry. He doesn't want to get beat up, so he pretends to start reading his newspaper article, just coming up with words on the fly and starts speaking anti-Christian words. But unfortunately, he uses some pretty strong words that inflame Mahindra so much that he's setting the stage for what happens later in the movie. I love how this movie is basically him just running around doing all these things. I love how like he's on the clock and he's doing all of these random things that have nothing to do with his job.
And now, for the top 3 things to do on the clock while working as a journalist. Chase Christians. Read bedtime stories.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Mahindra. He subscribed to a channel named Monkastery Studios.
Huh? Unsubscribe to T-Series? Yell at your boss.
The movie really takes a turn for the worse when Mahindra and some local fanatical people decide to set the car that Graham Staines is sleeping in along with his 2 sons on fire while they're sleeping and burn them to death. So that's where the martyr part of this comes in, and that's where I'm being very careful to be very respectful about what happened. It's absolutely horrible. This is a real story. So although Manav is traumatized by what happened, his boss encourages him to use the death as newspaper rhetoric, encourages him to continue to search for evidence that Graham Staines performed illegal conversions. I mean, how crazy is this guy? He literally just died, and his boss is telling him to use that to push their agenda. I'm telling you, I don't think news networks across the country anywhere are really different. In America, like, people just looking for any excuse to totally end your career and ruin your life. Apparently they do that in other countries too.
And then somehow in post-production, someone overlooked this. But hey, I didn't say anything.
Having somewhat of a heart change, he decides to tell his boss there's no way he's going to write an article denouncing Graham Staines because there's really no evidence. But his boss basically forces Manav to write the article he wants him to write, but in a surprising plot twist, a pretty satisfying plot twist. Alright, so now we're going to talk about what I think about the movie. I think that the biggest weakness of this movie, it was kind of pushed and advertised as a movie about the life of Graham Staines. But I feel like in the movie, Graham Staines as a character was so underdeveloped, and they almost in some ways portrayed him as kind of a flat character, almost uninteresting. Because the movie was focused on Manav, I understand that, it's a cool angle, but I feel like because they didn't develop Graham Staines well enough, when he died, I really didn't feel as much sympathy as I thought I should have. I think that the message inside of this movie is perfect. The message that's portrayed in this, there's a lot of different messages, but the message that resounds with the most is, as Christians, we cannot give special treatment to people just if they become Christians. Even if people don't convert, treat them with respect, treat them with honor, treat them with dignity. The ending in this movie, I loved it. It was perfect. It was unexpected. It was a great plot twist. Now, I don't know if this is anything that's actually wrong with the story without being the film guru myself. The story just seemed kind of monotone. Now, obviously, it's the type of story it is, but there weren't really any funny moments. There weren't really any action scenes. Like, take, for example, a Kendrick Brother movie. I'm not the biggest fan of Kendrick Brother movies, but their movies are very good at being able to do what I call switching up the flow. If you just have monotone, one scene after another, kind of progressing all the same thing, it kind of gets dull after a while. So Kendrick Brother films will just throw in a funny scene or something that's even a little bit unrelated to the story for the purpose of switching up the flow. But I feel like this movie as a whole was just kind it was consistent, but it was kind of set at a monotone, dull pace. And even some of the characters in the movie seemed a little dull and stiff, like they were lacking personality. So after Manav's grand boss, as we decided to call him, decided that he wanted him to pretend to become a Christian, I was expecting the story to be a lot different than it actually is, because it doesn't really focus much on Manav even trying to become a Christian. I thought that would be really interesting if it was a whole movie about this journalist pretending, trying to get into this Christian movement. Now, this movie is definitely a surprisingly clean movie. There is no profanity. Only things that I really didn't like personally was that there were a couple females inside of the movie that had somewhat kind of scanty clothing. There was some dancing inside of the movie. There was also the baptism scene inside of the movie. The baptism was performed in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. I know the majority of the church world does that. I actually am part of the church world that does not baptize in that name. We baptize in the name of Jesus Christ, which that's a whole doctrinal issue. I'd love to talk with any of you guys in the comments if you have questions about that. So thank you guys for checking this out. I hope you liked it. If you didn't, then that's on you. So, later.